Hi, I'm Nick. I'm 17. Once, on a Friday, while many people were out making real acquaintances in nightclubs, I wasn't able to meet somebody, even virtually. I lay on the couch in my room and went to site after site, wherever I had a profile, but there was not a single message for me on any of them. It was too early for sleep, but then, suddenly, I had an idea. I created a new profile, but instead of my own photos, I used those of strangers. I randomly had come across a profile of a rich man a couple of days before. On his page, there was nothing but cool cars, yachts, helicopters, and his attractive, toned body to go with his good looks. I borrowed his pictures, a couple of powerful phrases, and it worked. I immediately started getting attention. I scrolled through the profiles of these girls, and I noticed several, very nice ones. But then one photo stopped me dead in my tracks. It was my mom. Except, here her name was not Mrs. Judith Krember, but J. Hot 35. Those numbers on the end were definitely not her age. It was our house number. It's where I live. Where my mom and dad live, who just celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary that same year. My hands were shaking and my breath even became short as I opened her profile and saw some quite revealing photos. Mom makes dinner in an apron, gets out of the shower with a towel on her head, goes to work in a skirt that hangs below her knees, and a loose jacket. I'm used to all of that. But to see her in almost underwear with her mouth open while unabashedly posing for the camera? It was too much. I put down the phone and went outside to calm down a bit. Then, when I came back in, out of curiosity, I gave her a mutual like. A minute later, she messaged me. Hi, I'm Judy. What are you doing tomorrow? Do you know what thought struck me then? That we were only 5 meters away from each other. Only 2 doors and a small hallway separated us. And Dad was quietly watching television on the first floor. On this ordinary Friday night, Mom was calmly writing to a stranger. I had to find out what she was prepared to do. I'm considering freeing up an evening for you, I replied. And how can I help make your decision easier? She answered. I was afraid to imagine, let alone read or see what proposals she was ready to suggest. So instead, I asked if she was free on Saturday. Some more back and forth came down to the fact that yes, she was absolutely free, there were no conflicts with meeting, and she really wanted to meet me the next day. Not knowing whether she was serious or just had found a way to have fun and add some spice to her relationship with my dad. I set up a date for us in a cafe for the following day at 7 p.m. Deal. And please free up your whole evening, because after dinner, I can stay with you. I couldn't say anything back to this message, because I felt sick to my stomach. I didn't sleep all night and thought about how my mother and her secret life under the nickname J. Hot 35. The entire next day I was nervously awaiting this date. I left the house 2 hours early to make sure I found a good place to observe. After all, if she did come, which I strongly doubted, I would have to watch her from afar and go unnoticed. It was already 7:15 p.m., and for the first time that day, I breathed a sigh of relief. She had not come, which meant that she was only doing it for fun. I knew it. But then, I turned my attention to a woman in high heels and with a plunging neckline on her dress, red lipstick, starkly outlined eyes. Mom never looked like that. And yet, it was her. She obviously came not only for the sake of a harmless dinner. While I was standing in front of the entrance, hiding behind a car parked nearby, I got a message on my fake profile. I'm here. Where are you? I was racing home at full speed, filled with embarrassment and resentment. For myself, for Dad, and even for her. After all, she always talked so much about self-respect. I was still sitting in my room, staring off into space when my father called me to the table. For dinner, Dad had cooked a turkey because Mom needed a break too. He explained to me. She just smiled in her usual robe and with the natural shade of lipstick on her lips. Except her eyeliner was a reminder of her treacherous failed date. The turkey seemed tasteless to me, and I think I lost my appetite for a long time. After all, after what I learned about my mother, I can't pretend that nothing happened. Is it right to hide what my mom is doing for my dad? If I tell him everything, our family will fall apart. What should I do? What would you do?
Hi, I'm Lana, and I want to share with you an amazing story of which I became a part. Once, I was walking down the street and saw a homeless man. He was sitting on the sidewalk with a sign which read, "I am very hungry. Food, please." I felt so bad for him. I went into the cafe, bought lunch, and gave it to the homeless man. The man thanked me and eagerly pounced on the food. I realized that this person really is starving. At the time, I was a poor student. On my card, I only had a few $100, but I saw that a person really needed my help, so I did not hesitate for a second. I took out a $100 bill from the ATM, reached out, and gave him $100. You should have seen the look on his face. Of course, after that I had to save my money, but I knew that I had made the right decision. 5 years later, I saw a very similar man on an evening television show. He looked simply luxurious, an expensive suit, stylish hairstyle, well-groomed appearance. At first, I did not believe my eyes. I was certain that I was mistaken, or maybe it was just a coincidence. Intrigued, I sat on the sofa and turned up the volume. It turned out that the guest of the TV show was a successful entrepreneur who had earned more than $1 million. I won't say his surname so as not to draw too much attention to this person. I can only say that his name was Thomas. "How did you become so successful?" asked the host. Thomas smiled, looked directly at the camera, and replied that the first step to the top was $100, which one kind girl gave him on the street. I nearly choked on my coffee. It was him, the same homeless man, without a beard and shaggy hair. The sophisticated man on the screen was a hobo to whom I gave $100. But how is this possible? Thomas said that $100 changed his fate. At first, he wanted to spend money on food and drink, but then he realized this is a chance. The drifter went to a barber, got himself put together, and bought a second-hand soup at a thrift shop. So began his road to the top. Thomas got his first job. Having saved up some money, he began to study programming. Later, he assembled a small team. Together with fellow programmers, they wrote the first applications for mobile phones. And you know what? Users liked them. Now there are dozens of programmers working for Thomas. His company is developing games and software for smartphones, and Thomas has earned more than $1 million from this. I wanted to speak with Thomas and tell him how happy I was for him. I got on Facebook, looked at Thomas's page, and closed it. I was embarrassed to remind him of our meeting, so I just put a like under his last photo. Well, you know how girls like and wait for a miracle, for someone to reply? After 3 days, nothing had happened. I couldn't stand it and messaged him myself. The message read like this: "It's me, the very girl you talked about on the air a week ago," and all that. He read it. For several minutes, biting my nails with excitement, I waited for a reply. Thomas greeted me, said that he was extremely happy and could not believe that we were meeting again. He immediately invited me to a luxurious restaurant, but scheduled the meeting for a week later. Probably because of work, I thought, but that was not the case. A week later, we met. Thomas told me that he ended up on the street after the death of his father. His father's will left all the money with the stepmother, and she simply kicked her stepson right out of the house. When Tom became homeless, both his friends and his girlfriend abandoned him. He began to drink, lost his job, and disappeared into the void. I was the first person to sympathize with Tom and support him. I showed him that the world was not as bad as it seemed to him. In parting, Thomas gave me a velvet box tied with a ribbon. Holding my breath, I opened the box. Inside, there was some strange but familiar object. Seeing the buttons on the object, I realized what it was. We went outside. There was a brand new red Ford Mustang waiting for me. At first, I was speechless with delight, and then I screamed joyfully. No one had ever given me such a gift. There was only one problem. I did not have a driver's license. Thomas laughed. He had to give me a ride home in my new, or rather, my first car. Now I know for sure, the good that you do always comes back to you. Has fate ever given you unexpected gifts? Tell me about it.